Marston. Member Bell. He's not being able to join us this evening. Member Gould. Here. Member Huff. Here. Member Nolenberg. Here. And student board member will be joining us soon.
Okay, so tonight's meeting is being digitally recorded. Mr. Nolenberg, would you be so kind as to listen to tonight's pledge of allegiance?
Please stand and face the flag. And begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have three special recognitions and presentations. The first one will be to introduce the Temple City High School exchange students traveling to Australia. And that will be introduced by Annette Silverstone.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Annette Silverstone. I'm Vice President of Sister City, and I also do the fundraising over at the park. So sorry the way I look like. And there's some 4 o'clock, and we've come over here. So I would like to introduce our kids that are going this year, our ambassadors.
Hello, my name is Jude Hodson. I'm a student at Temple City High School, and the thing that I'm most excited about to do in Australia is to taste Vegemite. I've heard some many different things about it. I'd like to taste it for myself.
Hi, my name is Kennedy Lum. I also attend Temple City High School, and I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to go. And I'm most excited to try the food. I'm a big foodie, so it's an opportunity to eat more. Hi, I'm Stefania, and like everyone here, I'm also a student at Temple City High School. I would also like to thank the board for supporting us and letting us go on this amazing trip to learn a new culture. And I'm really excited to go see Sydney Opera House because I'm a violist and I'm like really big in music. And I'm really excited to go see my host family's 2 dogs.
Hi, my name is Kristen Fay. I'm most excited for creating international relationships and to meet my host sibling and her family. I've talked to her multiple times already through social media, and she has a lot of animals, and I'm really, really excited to meet her and just create friendships that last a lifetime. So that brings me to say thank you for all the tremendous support that you guys have given to us. Without that, it wouldn't have been possible for us to go to Australia. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm really most excited to see the kangaroos and koalas because I've heard that people eat them there in Australia, but I'm actually vegetarian, so I won't be trying that. And thank you to the board for making this possible because without your support, we wouldn't have been able to go.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Van, also from Temple City High School. I would like to thank the board and the district for their support of this wonderful exchange program where we get to go and meet a new culture and learn new things about the world. The thing I'm most excited for is to meet my host siblings' animals. They have a pet kangaroo, and he lives on a pig farm. And I also want to take pictures of Australia's wonderful landmarks and their beautiful scenery.
I just have one more announcement to make. We have 2 new board members this year on our Sister City board. The first one is with our Mexico exchange. His name is Caleb Wong. His daughter was Christy Wong, and she was one of our ambassadors 2 years ago. And second member, of membership is Jude's father, Sam Hodson, and we're very pleased to have both of them on our board this year.
I'll hand these over to you. And then if the board can get up, we'd like to take some photos with them. I'm just gonna take those down.
Okay, up next, we have our Tcusd High School CIF Baseball Champions, presented by Coach Rob Nelson.
Thank you for having us tonight. First time in school history, 64 years, that the baseball team has won a CIF championship, and the first boys championship since the 1978 football team, so 40 years. Unbelievable season. With these guys, we start back every year in October, and it's one of our goals that we set every year is to win a ring. And they put it together the last 7 games of the season. We had 2 games against South Pasadena that we needed to win, and then going into the playoffs, they just gelled completely as a team and took everybody on. Nobody gave us a shot. Everybody had us losing every game in the playoffs, and we took it to them. And I want to congratulate these young men again for the great accomplishment. Introduce my coaching staff, third base coach, catching coach, a gentleman that's been with me for 5 years now, on my side, Kevin Heaton. Our pitching coach, first year here, and an alumnus, graduated in 2002 from Temple City High School, Sean O'Leary. JV head coach who also coached first base for us in the playoffs so that I could stay in the dugout and manage things a little bit better, Lawrence Morales. Our team statistician, Spencer Allison. We brought up 3 boys from the junior varsity to help us not only in practice, but just to get used to what it's like to be in those pressure situations in the playoffs. Looking for good things from them in the future. Luke Bernacki, Noah Granger are here tonight. The other 2 gentlemen in the front row, starting pitcher Nate Lee, and our DH, Aiden Gordon. Standing next to Kevin Heaton is Dominic Romero, who is a relief pitcher and outfielder for us. Young man who's a senior who played the outfield for us, started in left field and moved to center field in the final game is Daniel Granger. Our first baseman, Jake Travey. Outfielder and left-handed pitcher, George Correa. Standing back in the corner next to Coach Morales is our starting right fielder, Dustin Williams. Next to him is our starting shortstop, Eric Lewis. Our second baseman and team MVP this year, Johnny Cedeno. Our starting pitcher for the final game is also outfielder, Isaiah Isaac. And our starting center fielder and also our closer, closed the game for us, Nico Day. unfortunately, there was 4 boys that were not able to attend tonight, but everybody contributed unbelievably this season. And like I said, it was a team effort, and I want to thank the board, thank the district for everything that has gone on the field. It's amazing. We've gotten just great reviews from everybody, you know, coming in that wants to play there. And the playoff games that we had at Temple City, the opposing teams, the head coaches came in and said what a beautiful place this is. So thank you very much.
Can we have the team come out and with the board take some photos?
Hello, Daniel. You're not going. No, just next is our recognition for Fireside Singers, Mr. Matt Byers.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we take an awful lot of pride each year in representing our school district and our community. And this past May, every year I try and take Brighter Side on tour. Every couple of years we will go on a competition tour rather than just a performance tour representing the community. And this year we performed at the World Strides Heritage Music Festival up in the Bay Area over Memorial Day weekend. It was a very fun weekend, and the music festival itself was great fun for us because we did so well. Our chorale, our general concert choir, received a gold rating, which was the first time in my 34 years that we had ever achieved that, and so that was very, very exciting. As represented by this nice plaque that Sam is holding here. And Brighter Side received first place for show choir, which we have achieved that in the past, but that was it's always gratifying to come out there and do that. And that's represented by something and then we also received the outstanding vocal group, and there's jazz choirs, concert choirs, show choirs, magical, classical groups, chamber singer groups, and we received the outstanding vocal group for the entire festival. That was the first time ever accomplished. And then lastly, they give a sweepstakes award to the outstanding music group, and that not only is the vocal groups, but also all chamber orchestras and symphony orchestras, marching bands, jazz bands, all of the instrumental groups overall. So there were 60 groups, music groups in the entire festival, and it's the first time in their history that they've ever given it to a show choir. And so that was the one that my mouth kind of dropped. So it was a very gratifying way to end our year. This group, this Brighter Side group, performed 42 times this year, representing our community and our school district, and very, very proud of them. And the seniors that are here are going to be missed, especially people like Caitlin, who have been with me since 3rd grade. So you know, and Rachel, I don't know how many years you've been with me, and we can hardly wait for Sam to kind of graduate. We still have one more year of Sam. But anyway, why don't you guys go ahead?
2 more.
2 more. No, just, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves, your grade, and seniors, where you're going. So.
I'm Sam Campbell. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Kevin Betts. I'm an incoming
senior.
I'm Isaac Haynes. I'm a sophomore incoming junior.
I'm Kate McCumishiro, and in the fall I will be attending Washington State University.
Hi, I'm Aaron Larson. I'm incoming senior.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Mesa, and I will be attending California State University of Long Beach.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'll be attending Pasadena City College.
Hi, I'm Danny Grimaldi, and I'm an incoming senior.
Also want to give kudos to, or appreciation to our Temple City Schools Foundation, who assisted financially in paying for a trip to Alcatraz Island, so that students could experience that wonderful institution. And we'll never visit any kind of institution like that again. So, and as always, we're really appreciative to our school board and our wonderful principal, Dr. Lasher back here, and all of the folks that support the arts. We had the drum line here, obviously, and the opportunity for us to be able to take our students to other areas or other countries and represent our community is not only such a great privilege, but an incredible educational experience, and it's with your support and financial help and whatever help you give us that we're able to go and do that, and the kids do a great job. Again, I'm very proud of this group and the year that we had, so thank you very much. Oh, you know what? Well, I totally forgot seeing Caitlin and Alyssa. We did have it. Caitlin, go ahead and show your award. One other award I've totally blanked on here. They awarded in the festival 6 outstanding soloists, individual performances, and of the 6, out of all the 60 groups, we received 2 of them for Caitlin as a soloist and for Alyssa Mason.
We figured it out, I
Sorry. Love the arts.
Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Yes.
Enjoy your summer. Thank you so much.
We'll move on to our item 6, public comments and agendized and non-agendized items. Our first one tonight is Alice Seiss.
Good evening, the Board of Education and everyone here tonight. My name is Alice C. I would like to make a comment about the recent appointment of interim superintendent service by Capital Advisor Group. First of all, I would like to know, how did the board decide on choosing Capital Advisor Group for the service? As far as I know from the past, the board would entertain several consulting firms and then vote at the board meeting. I didn't see our current board had done so. So, had the board ever gone through the proper procurement selection process of finding the consulting firm? We as a public were not given the chance for input and participation. It appears that Capital Advisory Group is very much associated with the legal counsel. I feel that the board decision is not transparent enough, or quite frankly, a little too close with the relationship for comfort and objectiveness. After the board appointed the two interim superintendents, Dr. Mark Governor and Richard Tower, and I tried to learn about them. So I Googled them. A number of news articles popped up. According to the news outlet, San Jose Inside published a series of articles between 2015 and 2016 about the allegations against Santa Clara County Board of Education Superintendent John Bungie. Dr. Scavana were named many times on the articles about his ties with John Bungie and his controversial consulting contracts. John Bungie was alleged for funneling large dollar amount contracts to Dr. Scavana's consulting firm. According to the article, Dr. Scavana was also alleged for not providing any documentation for work completed, and as well claiming excessive traveling expenses. Another news article back in 2011 by HuffPost, it reported that while Dr. Scavana was a superintendent at Baldwin Park Unified School District, the alleged school official misspent nearly $1.5 million intended for needy children. State regulators have withheld federal dollars from Baldwin Park for the second time in 5 years. As well, Mr. Tower, another interim superintendent, was reported on news. He was put on administrative leave with undisclosed reason by the Westminster Unified School Board of Education while he was a superintendent there back in 2014. It creates concern for us. As far as I know, the school board is very concerned about the financial irregularity that you have to put Ms. Perini on immediate administrative leave because of a third-party investigation, as the school board claimed. What does the school board think about the contentious history of Dr. Scavana? Is it a concern for you? Did you just make a necessary move? Your decision-making is really puzzling the public. Again, I need to question what criteria you base upon during the selection process. Lastly, Mr. Marston, you still have not answered my previous question about investigation of Ms. Perini. Then I have to ask again, who is the third party conducting investigation? Whether the investigation is finished. If not, where's the outcome? Hopefully, I don't want to ask a third time. Okay, I'm done. I just have copies of the news article I print out from the Google search so I can give it to Mr. Marston to study.
Maureen Watt.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maureen Wang, and tonight I'm going to have a comment on the contract that you're going to have with the two consultants. So I look at the agenda report on the first page, the fiscal impact. They say after June 30, 2018, the impact will be at most the difference between what the prior superintendent earned and what is paid to the consultant based on the hourly rate in the agreement. It is anticipated that consultant who will share the responsibility under the agreement will work fewer hours than a permanent superintendent. I don't understand how do you justify the fewer hours? Then I look at the contract itself. The page number 2, item number 4, compensation. It say $250 per hour. And there is no cap amount at all. That means usually a contract will say not to exceed certain amount, unless you have unlimited funding. Otherwise, how can you make a contract like that? Okay, I do the approximately calculation. 40 hours a week, $250 an hour is $10,000 a week. let's say make it a month, 4 weeks, it's 40,000 a month. 10 months is 400,000 already for one person. And so now you have 2 consultants. I don't know what's going on here. And then I look at detail, and then in addition to that, they also provide a service to hire the superintendent, the future one. But there is a conflict of interest. They are the one to intro, and then they are the one going to hire someone, a proper one. But the longer that time they have, they will get the service charges and also the the service for the hiring. So they double dipping then. We don't know how you plan, what's your plan. And then let's go to page number 411. And then we find out there's something interesting. The district is further aware that the consulting group also serve as a law firm consultant. So it looks like that, yeah, you disclose it, yeah, because you have to, otherwise you're going to have a lawsuit in the future. Because now it's a conflict of interest. And this is the only consulting company you can hire? What is the process, selecting process? And I'm thinking, it looks like the whole thing, it looks like it's orchestrated by the outsider. I am the resident here. The board member, you guys are resident here. This is our family, we are home. And please put your difference behind and thinking about this is our home. Don't let the outsider take the advantage from us.
Melissa Espinoza.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Espinoza, and I'm a concerned community member. I'll start by saying that I've sat through, I believe, 7 or 8 straight meetings, and I've learned more than I've ever would want to know about board proceedings. And I also consider myself a reasonable person with a decent understanding of business. And in any business, there's always tough decisions that need to be made. That may not always be popular, but when you examine the decisions, putting aside your emotions, one can typically come to an understanding of the reasons behind some solid business decisions. And make no mistake, education is a business. And in this case, I've been waiting for the moment where I understand how all the board's actions have made good business sense, or the moment where I see how all of this has made our school district better. I have yet to see good business sense from your decisions, unfortunately. Instead, what I see is things going downhill fast. I see the district is paying for not 1, but 3 superintendents at this time. A significant cost that takes away from our students. Another significant expense is the legal costs that Mr. Kinsler and his firm, that's also taking away from our students. Also, great employees are scared about their futures, and even worse, some are leaving the district. I don't know what their reasons are, but they're leaving at this time. The timing is interesting. And even if it means taking a lesser job. So what a loss to the district and our students. And then I have questions. Those selected as interim superintendents have faced similar allegations that put Kathy Perini on leave. And I say allegations because it's quite possible these gentlemen were wrongly accused of financial irregularities, just like Kathy. But why is it okay for the male interim superintendents to serve our district while the female superintendent was not afforded the same opportunity? Another question, why? And this is the one that really, I think, has upset most of this community. Why did there have to be character assassination against Kathy when it's the board's right to renew a contract without explanation? I do not understand why the board felt it necessary to smear Kathy's reputation. It added much insult to injury and has created a huge divide in the community, not only that, but typically, when there is a solid business reason behind decisions, there's no need to assassinate one's character. Doing so makes it personal and makes it seem like it's a personal choice to have done it. It seems you might be thinking, hey, this will blow over, the school year's over, but I believe it will not be over anytime soon. This is much bigger than not giving Kathy Carini her job back. It's about a loss of trust and confidence in your ability to serve the best interests of the students. My hope is that in one of these meetings, I will witness something that makes good business sense for our district. Until that occurs, I hope you understand your actions are not in line with the majority of your constituents, and I respectfully ask you to better align your actions with the majority of your constituents and serve the best interests of the students.
Okay, Mrs. Sullivan, we have listed number 17. You want to speak at that particular item?
You know what, I'll wait until you're ready to talk or discuss on both of my items, please. Thank you.
So I will move you through here. Eleanor Chang.
Actually, I'm very shy. I don't like to stand in front of the public. But I read that contract. I'm a constituent and I'm a taxpayer. Really, I have a big concern. We all want the Temple City School District to be one of the best school districts. However, when I look at the contract, I have a question. That contract doesn't have a ceiling amount. As a finance people, we don't sign those contracts without ceiling amount because you don't know your funding source. How did you pay for them as a consultant? And I also do the calculation as one of the speakers. She said that the calculation on compensation sections, we pay the consultant $250 per hour. Then I calculate that for 1 week, for 40 hours. We pay the consultant $10,000 per week, one consultant. So in terms of 1 year, we will spend $1 million on this consultant for the superintendents. Is that worth it? Can we use this money to spend on our kids? I know those board members, you are the parents. You want your kids to be better in a good school district. Why don't you want those money to on the kids? You want to spend those money on those political, on those bureaucracy things? I'm sorry for my word, but as a constituent, as a taxpayer, I don't want the school. I would encourage you, the board member, spend money carefully. Focus on our kids, focus on our program, focus on our community. And because those things, those school districts, those things happen, it really impact the people coming to the Temple City. I know the friends, they try to purchase house in the Temple City. They heard whatever happened in the school district. They withdraw the escrow. They don't want to purchase a house in the Temple City. See, you don't know how big impact for the board member, whatever the decision you made. Okay, the last question I have, does the Temple City School District have such a big budget to pay the consultant? If we do, I would like to probably request to see what's the budget in our Temple City School District. Why don't we spend as money, as I say, on our students' program? Okay, that's it.
Mr. Pomeroy, did you wish to speak now or at 17?
Can I speak a little bit now and a little bit later?
You can speak on every item for the law.
I'll try to keep it short. Let's see. Good evening, board members, community. I want to give a special welcome to Eileen, our new student board member. It's really exciting to see you up there, Eileen. I knew Eileen when she was kind of younger, but so it's great to see you, and you're really looking forward to what you get to do in that position. And I My name's John Pomeroy. I was serving on this board until December. I served for 4 years. So, and I came up and spoke a couple meetings ago. You know, a lot of things are hard for me. I have a vested interest in a lot of parts of the decisions that are being made right now. I will tell you this, that I think we learned that it takes a lot of work and a well-functioning board to make a superintendent successful. And we can all agree that there are a lot of successes in Kathy Perini's superintendentship. And for that, I think that myself and Mr. Nolenberg and Mr. Bell and Bob Ridley and Ken Tiet, not that we deserve the credit, but we all worked together with her. And it took a lot of open conversations early on where people came in and you had to be open to changing your mind. You can't come into any conversation when you're on the school board with your mind already made up about something. You have to be open-minded and listen to each other. And I hope that this board is still taking that approach on everything. I want to just, and I do have comments about the contract later, but I just want to say that because Kathy Perini had not been in the district office before, and we had no one in the district who had been a superintendent before, you know, there may have been some types of experience that we were missing. Kathy Perini loves Temple City Unified more than any person I've ever met and will ever meet, and there were enormous benefits to having her in the position. I think today, having a retired superintendent with experience to come in and help us as we go forward can be a good thing. I guess I caution our board that our focus really should be on moving forward. We're going to review what has happened and how things have functioned for the point of moving forward, because really the only use of proper use of funds, I think, to investigate is to make sure that future decisions are done properly. And finally, I just want to say that, you know, whatever good things we saw or any good things that happened that you all don't know about in the last several years, they really came through our staff also. And so I've been concerned, especially last meeting, with criticism of some of our senior staff, including our personnel director, Dr. Kuna, and also our chief business official, Ms. Sorrell. And you know, I have nothing but the utmost respect for both of them, and they have been put in a really difficult position right now. But we all have to remember that they contain a lot of institutional knowledge today, and we need to respect what they've brought to the district so far. Thank you.
We'll move on to our district updates, business services.
Good evening. One small item, we applied for a grant for safety-related information or things we could purchase, and we received a grant of $2,550, which we'll use to offset some of our new security cameras. The second item is I wanted to give you a brief update on the bond projects. So we're at the high school, we're working on phase 1B, which is the new pool, locker room, and field renovations. The electrical building has been completed. Masonry is underway for the trash enclosure, and we're working on the new excavation for the new pool deck. At Longden Elementary, we're doing a major modernization there, and we are now focused on the kindergarten classrooms. We're expecting to have those completed mid to late September, and the new elevator is in. We're just doing testing on it before it can be used. Cloverly and La Rosa both have modernization scheduled. The bids will be happening later this month, July 24th. They get turned on, next month, July 24th. At Cloverly, it's primarily the office and a little bit of the cafeteria, and La Rosa, it's classrooms and the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Educational services?
Good evening. A few brief updates. The first is that the graduations at the schools were a success, and it was truly, I think, an opportunity to celebrate our students, and it was very wonderful. The summer PD has started underway, and yesterday we opened with a meeting of our VAPA committee. You saw and approved the plan from the last meeting, and so a group of teachers, K through 12, met to work on the scope and sequence of a K-8 articulation of VAPA content. And then we're going to continue with our summer PD, and we have offerings that align with district as well as school site goals. So our GLAD training for ELD, Google certification, and there were a lot of our NGSS. The testing went smoothly, and our completion rates were high across the board, very, very high. And I just want to reiterate that we finished CAST, our SBAC, our CAST for grades 5, 7, and 12, which is the science test in its initial iteration. And there was high participation rates across the board. And I just kind of want to give special accolades to Oak Intermediate, who had the highest completion rate of all students except one. And so that's really a celebration for us. And that's the report.
Thank you very much. Personnel services.
So as you know, this is about the time of the season we do our hiring. I'm happy to report that Temple City is still a desirous place to work. We have posted a couple of positions that within a couple of days we posted a counseling position. Within 2 days we had close to 60 applicants for that. For our social studies teacher position, within a week we had over 50 applicants. And for our assistant superintendent at services, we had 42 applicants that applied for that position. So looking forward to actually going through the process of interviewing folks. But we have some really high quality candidates that are put in. And so I'm hopeful that we'll select the right individual to fill that seat.
We trust you, sir. Are there any bargaining unit comments for tonight? Ms. Locke?
Good evening, Mr. Marston, Mr. Mullenberg, Ms. Huff, and Mr. Gould. I'm Ellen Laughlin, and I have the privilege and honor to represent the teachers, psychologists, counselors, speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, vision and mobility specialists as the TCEA president for the 2018-2019 school year. Currently, I'm a teacher at Emperor School, but I have worked at La Rosa and Longden schools for a total of 16 years. Additionally, I have served TCEA for 14 years in various roles. Upon hearing the news that I was elected president, I went straight to work. And I am open to listening and learning all that I need to fulfill my role. Throughout my years working in the district, I have experienced good times and bad times. And I realize right now that the climate in our district is tenuous. But I know the professionalism and strength that our teachers have will carry us through this time. It is also especially true at this time that we remain united to maintain the high standards of our district with the collaboration of the schools, the board, and the community. With this in mind, I hope to create a bridge for the faculty and for the board to engage in a respectful working relationship. I may be representing the many voices of faculty within our district, but our primary goal has always been and remains to be the needs and the best interests of our students. And I'm hopeful that we can carry Temple City Unified School District into the new school year with the same collaborative vision. Thank you.
Okay, very first student board member comments.
So good evening, just a few updates for tonight. So the high school graduation was last Friday, and the ASB executive officers met today, and we approved our ASB budget for the year. The class officers began their class budgets, and there's class t-shirt pre-orders going on, and we have our ASB leadership camp at UC Santa Barbara coming up, along with our ASB retreat.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gould, you want to start us off tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to welcome you to our board. It's really nice to see you here. I certainly face. Also want to congratulate all the exchange students and stuff in their trip to Australia. And it seems very exciting and stuff to be down there. I think they're going to have a real good time and stuff. And of course, the baseball team did an outstanding job. And he's asked the coach if he's losing a lot of seniors. He said he's only losing 3 seniors that are on the starting team. So maybe next year will be really nice. Of course, the brighter sides with all the accolades that they acquired and stuff is very outstanding. And representing Tcusd City is fantastic.
Mrs. Huff?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out and supporting our kids, brighter sides, the baseball team, amazing perseverance, and our exchange students to Australia. I know they will enjoy their trip. I've been there, and it is amazing. The people over there in Australia are so friendly, and our kids will have a chance maybe to do some dancing, square dancing. It's all generations, and they are such a friendly people over there, so I know they will have a good time. Also, too, I had the opportunity to attend all the promotions and the graduations, and I was, again, so proud of our district, our students, our amazing teachers, amazing staff, and how nice the grounds all looked. And also, too, I'm proud of our parents, too, because it takes a lot of support to get this all to happen, you know, and it's teamwork. It's teamwork wherever we go. One of the most amazing graduations that I went to was the Doug Sears Learning Center. I know I worked there for a while, and I was so impressed. I'm so glad to see the improvements, but to hear the students speak about their second chance again, it brought tears to our eyes. I was so deeply touched. I'm so proud of those students. So thank you again.
Mr. Nolbert?
Yes. I'd like to thank the people going to Australia. Also, some of the adults are also going to Australia too. They just left, I think, tonight, or will leave tonight. Also, I'd like to thank the baseball team who played at Fullerton, a championship game, and they did exceptionally well. And also our performing arts people for the wonderful work they did. I also attended all the promotions and the graduation ceremonies at each of the school sites, with the exception of Rosa, which didn't have a promotion. One of the things that was nice at all the promotions was the speeches given by either by the student, a student, or by the principal themselves. They were all very, very moving and all rather different. And they all spoke rather well of the students and of the school system. Also, I'd like to thank all the people who made possible the graduation, which includes our grounds people, our maintenance people, our teachers, the students themselves, and a lot of volunteers in the community who provided either flowers or some other items for the sets that were used for the presentation. Also, Jerry Gambisi was very kind to take pictures of most of the students, and at Cloverly he represented the Kiwanis Club very well, stating, introducing some of the students who won awards for outstanding service that the Kiwanis Club is going to be honoring over the next couple of years. And also I attended on the 1st of the month, the high school sunset ceremony of the seniors, and that was rather good speeches. I don't know if they actually are the best looking students, but they say they are. So nobody argued the point. And it was a nice ceremony. I thought it was a nice ceremony. And then also I attended yesterday the Temple City School Foundation had a meeting, a general meeting, and it looks like the summer school started already at the high school, and the other summer school is going to start this week, I think, or next week. And the enrollment's down a little bit, but it's still rather substantial. And we're starting to get a lot of students from other school districts who come to our summer school programs, Arcadia being the one that probably the most noticeable. And the school foundation helps, I think, the class and the teachers by giving grants and et cetera over the years. And so any support you can give to the school foundation is deeply appreciated by the school and parents and the board. Thank you.
Thank you. I will echo the sentiments of my colleagues and pass my time to Mr. Tao.
Oh, okay, great, thank you very much. Thank you, it's nice to be here tonight, even though it might be a little bit uncomfortable from time to time with the comments that are made, but still I'm glad to be here. I'm actually a local guy. I actually went to school. I lived in Temple City as a youngster on the corner of Longden and Reno. Grew up partly in Arcadia. That's where I currently live. Years ago, pardon me? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me anyway? Years ago, I actually worked in Temple City Unified School District. I was a principal at La Rosa for a couple of years, and I did categorical programming responsibilities as well at Oak, the high school, and the other schools. So I feel like I'm pretty familiar with Temple City. And I'd like to congratulate you on a really nice, to be expected, nice graduation promotional ceremonies last week. Congratulate you on the victory of the baseball team that we talked about tonight, and Matt Byer's group. I remember Matt Byer when he first started, when he came over to La Rosa, did some musical work too. So I feel like I know Temple City quite well. The last couple of weeks I've had an opportunity to meet with a number of people, some brand new people that I didn't know, and some people that I do know. Some people that I know when I worked next door in San Gabriel Unified. One of the coaches on the baseball team was from, I actually hired him over at Wilson School when I was principal years ago over there. So I wrote some things down I'd like to read. Pardon me for reading them to you, but I wanted to kind of succinctly tell you what my thoughts are about where you are and where I hope that we can go, and hopefully I can lead you into some of that direction. It says here, you have a great district with a strong and successful past and potentially really bright future, and you do. Your positive reputation attracts wonderful and stable families, and you heard that tonight. We have a position that's a key position that's available, key administrative position, and shockingly, although it shouldn't be shocking, shockingly we had how many applicants? 42 applicants. And I say shockingly because since I retired 4 years ago, I actually do a lot of work for school districts throughout the state, all over. Quite a bit of it is HR stuff. And it's really difficult to fill some key administrative positions. So it's surprisingly in a pleasant way that I see that you have the number of applicants that you do. And I had the benefit and challenge of screening every one of those application papers, and the quality that you received, the applications you received is really, really high. Very, very high. So you're pleased, and that's because you've got a really good reputation. You have excellent students, great teachers, good classified staff and administrators, and it all serves to maintain the strong programs that you have and a fairly stable student enrollment. Student enrollment is really important. You don't want to decline on the student enrollment numbers. It's in the best interest of the district that we all maintain our tradition of focusing on positive communications and directions so that the district will continue to attract the best families, students, staff, leadership, and programs. Positive communications are the key to maintaining that. So please join us in doing just that. And finally, I'm looking forward to engaging the staff and the parent groups and the community in order to craft and support positive directions and constructive plans for the upcoming school year. So I hope you join us. Thank you. Wow. That seems fitting sort of sound for an old guy like me.
Okay, so we have no discussion and information items for tonight. So we'll move on to our discussion action items. What? Pardon me?
Number 12.
There is no written communication. Thank you very much. Yes. So we'll move on to item 13A, which is I'll move to approve the opening of a public hearing for a local control accountability plan. Second by Mr. Gould. All in favor? Aye. Aye. 4-0. This is a public hearing for everyone in the audience or even the board to ask questions concerning how the LCAP had been created, what the situation was with the surveys that helped create the LCAP, and where we're going to go with it in the future. So, Ms. Suman.
Good evening. So I'm going to be calling my colleague, Ethan Stocks, up with me. It's really been a joint effort to do the good work of putting together the local control and accountability plan for the district. This is a proposal which we will be presenting to you today. And I just want to start off by thanking all of the different groups. It really takes more than just, a few people even to make this plan live, to make it actually work. And so I want to thank all the parents, all the students, the teachers, the unions, and the administrators who have contributed to the formation of this plan and also the rollout of it. We're in our second year, and we're going to go into the details of the creation of it, and then also our adjustment in this presentation.
Okay, we're going to start with just a little bit of background information about the LCAP so that we're all comfortable with how the document works. So first of all, the LCAP is a document that is prepared by every school district. It's a 3-year plan that we revisit each year and update according to any changes that might have taken place over that preceding year. And so the plan is intended to describe our goals and priorities as a district. It defines specific actions and services that we will utilize in order to meet those goals and priorities. And finally, it identifies specific outcomes that we will track to measure our progress toward those goals.
So we're going to first start off with a plan summary of the people that we are serving. We serve as a district a little under 6,000 students from transitional kindergarten through 12th grade. And we serve a very diverse population of students. You can see the breakdown of the percentages before you in the presentation and also in your binders. And as you can see, it's a variety with a predominant number of students of Asian background and Hispanic or Latino background. So some summary highlights. So there have been some growth in programs over the past few years. The first of which is Code to the Future, which has been rolled out within the bells, right, at all of our elementary schools. We're in our second year of that, or we just closed our second year of that. And then the STEAM and computer science course offerings at the middle school and also at the high school will bridge into that as students come in with the foundational knowledge around computer science that they are exposed to and develop in the elementary schools. Also, there is a dual enrollment partnership with Pasadena City College and some new exciting college career and technical education pathways at the high school. that will all sort of build into this progression. So that's sort of a big picture of the programming that we've been developing. The parent engagement component has been very important to us, and to that end we have been mindful about updates to district and school websites. You can probably see within the few years that the look of our website has changed, and in response to some of the feedback, we've widened the access and sort of done our best to broaden the audience. And then we increase our social media options as well. There have also been more parent workshops geared toward the interest that we have, that we've noted based on the surveys. So specifically K-5 mastery-based report card workshops for parents, iReady and math expressions workshops that have taken place in the evenings, and then sometimes during the school day based on availability and parent interest. And then professional development options as well, health-focused collaboratives, and then the health coursework at Oak. And there's also been a parent night, so keeping community and parents involved and informed as we transition in terms of our coursework there. And then the multi-tiered system of support, which is what we're rolling out, and under that umbrella is PBIS and RTI and some of the strategies that we use to support the learning and the social, emotional, and the behavioral needs of all of our students. So there's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to celebrate in our district, and I just want to start off by saying that this year Tcusd showed greatest progress in the academic indicator for mathematics. So overall, we are doing very well academically, but particularly in math. And that's available on the dashboard, the California dashboard. We can see that our students have improved overall, that English learners have increased in the area of math by 4 points. And so the way that the point system works, and my colleague Ethan can probably elaborate a little bit on this later, it's not a percentage point system. The state identifies through a formula sort of the median performance, and so that 4 point is 4 points above the distance from Met. And so this is, the bottom line is this is very good in terms of the subpopulation of English learners in the area of mathematics. And then socioeconomically disadvantaged students also increased in the area of math by 4.6 points. African American students increased by an impressive 19.5 points, but we also have to take into account that's, you know, in terms of the number of the students that we served a few slides back, they're not quite in the majority in terms of our district. But I just want to put that out there because that's also worth celebrating. And what that tells us is that we're going in the right direction in terms of what we are providing to our students in guidance and support and curriculum, and that really is a kudos to our teachers. And so that is a share and a celebrate. This growth can be attributed to a few different factors in addition to the teacher work. Eureka Math, which was sort of an introduction to the Common Core Math Standards as we transitioned into a math adoption at the elementary level, CCSS math training that happened, as well as iReady, which is a tool that we used to support students in their learning. And additionally, the district has adopted completed its first year of the new standards-aligned math curriculum, math expressions.
So in addition to identifying our greatest progress, the LCAP process also asks us to talk about our greatest needs. And as I've talked about with you many times, the California School Dashboard does a great job of helping us identify some data that we can use to identify those needs and hopefully address them. So one of the needs that we identified is our suspension rate, particularly among foster youth, homeless students, and students with disability. Each of those areas ticked up a little bit in 2016-17, so that's something that we're looking at this year. Dr. Chow mentioned our interest in multi-tiered systems of support, which will help us to support students more effectively, not only academically, but behaviorally and social-emotionally. And so we're hoping that that will lead to some positive change in the area of suspension rate. In addition to that, we identified math performance among students with disability as an area of need. Their performance in math, though overall the district improved, their performance in math was decreased by 4.4 points. And the same is true of Hispanic students, their scores decreased. And we've responded by implementing a UK5 math curriculum, and we're hopeful that that will support these students this year, and we'll see some positive growth there. The other area that we identified a need is in the academic performance in ELA. All of our students were either flat in that area or decreased slightly. Our overall performance did not decrease dramatically by any stretch of the imagination, but it's an area that we want to look at more closely. Students with disabilities did drop by 8.4 points in ELA, and Hispanic students dropped by 10.4 points. So we're beginning to address this problem by working on an ELA curriculum adoption, which we began this year. We've met with teachers on several occasions to begin identifying texts to pilot, and we'll pilot those texts in the fall with the goal of having them board approved early next spring and having them in students' hands in fall 2019. Oh, this is me. This is another just highlight of some of the performance gaps that I mentioned. The piece that I really want to emphasize is that our all-student performance, our district-level performance for all students is actually quite good. We're green or blue overall in all categories, and that's something that is definitely deserves celebration. That being said, there are some gaps that exist, and they're the things that I called out before. Our suspension rate is blue as a district. That's the highest you can be. But some of our subgroups, foster youth, homeless, students with disabilities, are more than 2 levels below that on the dashboard, so we want to look at that. Graduation rate is also blue. That's very good for the district. But students with disabilities are orange, so that's something that we want to look at. ELA is green overall, but as I mentioned, students with disabilities and Hispanic students, we're going to do some work there. And math, students with disabilities and Hispanic students are also orange compared to the overall green. So we're looking at those groups and how we can address those needs academically.
So part of the plan is identifying strengths, identifying areas of growth, and then also identifying goals for intervention so that we can address these gaps. So I'm going to start by reiterating the MTSS initiative, which we think will address the specific needs of every student in the district, including the subgroups that were identified. And then intervention during the school day in math and reading support, and that's already begun. We're actually closing our 2nd year of rolling out iReady in grades K through 8, and so that work will continue. Opportunities for students in special ed in GE electives. So the Code to the Future, which I mentioned, the computer science, has been integrated into the school day. And that is available to all student populations. And increase in push-in structure of credentialed special ed teachers into the general ed classroom. And so some of that work has started already, and we will continue that. And then training opportunities for the general ed teachers to help them support students with disabilities. One of our offerings this summer is a training just on this. And it is open to the general ed teachers to help support them in supporting their students. Special ed case managers have taken steps to ensure that students' IEP goals are grade level appropriate and aligned with the Common Core state standards, and this is work that has started, that we're going to continue. And then the piloting of PBIS strategies to manage student discipline. And as I mentioned before, that folds into the MTSS work that we are doing. Okay, so to continue, both Code to the Future and iReady are intended to increase and improve services for both students, or for students with the greatest needs. So it helps the general population, but really it is intended to increase and improve services for all of our students, including the subgroups identified. There has been also some training around guided language acquisition and development, the GLAD strategies that I mentioned at the previous board meeting. That work will continue, and actually that's also part of our professional development offerings that will happen at the end of June. And Tcusd will also offer a summer bridge program for English learners in need of additional support, and that will happen 2 weeks before school begins, just to give them that extra support before school begins, right? And ILET is a program, a supplemental curriculum for English learners that is being rolled out in secondary, but then also piloted in grades 4 through 6 to help engage readers and accelerate the acquisition of literacy skills and language development in our English learners.
Okay, so that is our sort of big picture overview of the LCAP. Now we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the goals, actions, and services that we've identified for this coming year. So Goal 1 has 3 pieces that align with our state priorities. They are basic services, implementation of state standards, and course access. And so we intend as a district to make sure our teachers are fully credentialed and assigned to the appropriate grade levels or subject areas. We want to make sure that district facilities and school facilities remain in good repair. And we want to make sure that students have access to materials that meet the state requirements. As far as the implementation of state standards, we're going to provide the appropriate conditions for learning and ensure that the state-adopted standards are being taught to all of our students. And with regard to course access, we are going to ensure that all students have access to the required fields and areas of study.
So some actions and services related to this first goal, we're going to continue. So some of this is continuing what we already have in place or what we've already started. So we're going to continue to have 100% of teachers credentialed and appropriately assigned. We're going to continue to support the maintenance efforts for the integrity and appearance of all school facilities. We're going to continue the purchase of grade levels, standards aligned, research-based instructional materials. We're going to offer courses and extension activities to meet student needs and provide alternative pathways to meet graduation requirements at the high school. And we're going to offer summer trainings and workshops for teachers and staff in support of these goals. We are also going to maintain the TK through 3 class size ratio. We're going to continue to provide induction, which is the BITSA, beginning teacher training and support for the new teachers, and then provide technology support at school sites. Use ELD and intervention teachers to provide targeted services to our English learners, and to support teachers and administration in meeting state credentialing requirements.
And so in order to track our completion of those actions and services, we're going to pay attention to some measurable outcomes that we've identified in the document. So we want to make sure that 100% of our teachers are credentialed and teaching the appropriate courses, that students have access to standards-aligned materials, that we will continue exploring and following up with our curriculum adoptions, that our schools are rated good or exemplary on our facilities inspection tool, which we do annually, and we will obviously continue to monitor maintenance, facility usage, technology, and energy usage at the district level using our favorite application, School Do. Continuing with that, the district will continue to provide quarterly reports on our Williams Act compliance. We'll provide annual professional development for our staff members. Students will have access to a broad course of study, and secondary students will have access to courses that prepare them for college and career, including specifically those A through G courses that are requirements for admission to the University of California.
So our second goal deals with pupil achievement and other outcomes, and the goal, according to the plan, indicates that Tcusd will increase pupil achievement levels, that we will pay mindful attention to students who may need additional supports or scaffolds for academic success. So again, referring to the subgroups that we mentioned. And then Tcusd will maintain its status and change levels on the California school dashboard. So, we're predominantly blue and green. Overall, we want to maintain that level. and then also support the students in subgroups that we mentioned. And then Tcusd will help students thrive in safe environments and feel a sense of connection to school.
So we have a few actions and services also for Goal 2. We're going to provide teacher training and student instruction in coding and technology. We've mentioned Code to the Future and some of our other technology programs. We'll continue to use those. We're going to continue to use our computer adaptive program, iReady, to support instruction and to gather some information about student learning. We're going to provide professional development to support 21st century learning and the Common Core and some of the other new standards that are coming out in California and across the country. We're going to continue to fund our ARIES SIS, our student information system, where we keep data where parents can have access to their child's data and grades, as well as Blackboard Connect, which is a tool that helps with school-to-home communication. We're going to offer summer learning opportunities to students who are at risk or in need of grade level standards, support to meet them rather. We're going to provide professional development and coaching focused on integrated and designated ELD strategies. We're going to provide instructional resources and technology to support at-risk and unduplicated students. We'll utilize our classified paraprofessionals to support students in those special programs, specifically our EL program for literacy development, RTI we mentioned, as well as some of our testing for our English learners. The LTAC is the new test. We will provide support for assessments and data, including progress monitoring over the course of the year, so that we have a good handle on how our students are performing throughout the year, not just when those scores come out at the end. We'll utilize strategies and structures to support our unduplicated students, and we will make sure that all of our pupils have access to a rigorous academic curriculum.
So annual measurable outcomes around Goal 2. We are going to look at student performance on the academic indicators for ELA and math to ensure that those numbers increase. And then we want to look at student performance on the English Learner Progress Indicator, also a part of the dashboard, the reclassification rate for English learners, and the student performance on the College Career Indicator. So that data is unavailable this year, but it will come out in the fall of next fall. And then student scores for early assessment program to show that more students are ready or conditionally ready. And the AP scores of 3 or higher. We want to look at that and make sure that that increases. iReady, predictive proficiency reports. We want to look at that to have them show growth in both ELA and math. Another goal or measurable outcome is that all students will have access to STEAM courses during the school day in grades 4 through 12. And AP participation rates will increase at the high school.
All right, moving on to Goal 3, our third goal here deals with parent involvement, student engagement in our school climate. So we want to continue to engage and empower parents and guardians to be active participants in their child's school experience. Student engagement, we want to provide student support systems to help every student meet graduation requirements and to prepare for whatever comes for them after high school. And finally, school climate will provide all students and staff with support programs and systems that will focus on character and social emotional support.
So actions and services. We're going to use district and site websites, online grading, ARIES portal to increase school-to-home connection and communication, support translation of written, web, and oral communication, meetings, presentations, parent nights, and to empower parents and guardians in that process, to offer parent education classes on various topics that are aligned with district initiatives, including academic and behavioral supports, technology, and developmental assets necessary for success in school, to support physical and emotional safety across the district, engage students through STEAM and FAPA to feel connected and engaged in their learning and their community and their school, to utilize multi-tiered intervention strategies to reduce chronic absenteeism, also on the dashboard, and then to expand support personnel to provide emotional, social, and academic support to students.
And the measurable outcomes that we're looking at for goal 3, we want to monitor the number of parent responses on our LCAP survey and make sure that that continues to increase. We had an enormous increase this year, which we're very excited about. We want the daily and monthly visits to the district website and the use of the district app to continue to increase. The number of active Aries parent portal accounts, we also want to see that increase. We want the participation of the parents of unduplicated students, so the parents of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged or English learners or foster youth. We want those parents in particular to be involved more in our schools and in our district. We want to finalize and implement our scope and sequence for our VAPA disciplines, which we've been working on this year. We want to increase our attendance rates, and we want the number of chronically absent students to decrease. Oh, and it continues. We want to maintain our very low status on our suspension rate. We want to maintain 0 dropouts at middle school. We want to decrease our number of high school dropouts. We want to maintain our very high graduation rate and increase our graduation rate for our students with disabilities. We want to expel fewer students, fewer than 2. And we want our site safety plans to be revised and our SARCs to be presented to the appropriate stakeholder groups in compliance with California Education Code. And finally, we want positive student, staff, and parent responses on our LCAP survey with respect to acceptance of differences to increase.
And I just want to reiterate, I mean, this is a lot, and so I'm not going to read what's on the slide because it's before you. But essentially, like, all of this that we've presented to you is basically just an iteration of data that we've collected from the various stakeholder groups. It was done throughout the year, and so you can see, this is the second year, right? So our second year implementation, the feedback happened throughout the year. So we were very mindful of making sure that our goals and our measurable outcomes and our actions and services, it came from the group, and to our best ability, we adjusted to meet the needs based on the feedback that we received. And in terms of the stakeholder engagement, the LCAP survey garnered a ton of responses. I mean, we had a lot more than we did last year, which I feel like was a celebration, and I really appreciated hearing that feedback and really getting that input, because that really helped guide this process for the groups that maybe were less inclined to fill out the survey, which was an automatic pop-up on the websites and the school websites and the district websites. We went in person and we hosted some live in-person, face-to-face sessions where we got feedback directly. And so that was very helpful too.
The last piece that we address in the LCAP is a demonstration of increased or improved services for our unduplicated students. So again, our unduplicated students are those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, those who are English learners, those who are foster youth or homeless. And as we've mentioned throughout our presentation, we have a number of programs and initiatives in the district to target those students. Some of those things are given to everyone because they will benefit everyone, but we know that they'll address those students' needs as well. Some of them are very specific, and so we've listed some of those things on the board for you, and it's reflected in a little more detail on the actual LCAP document. And with that, if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer them.
I had a question on the teacher credentials. How far are we being 100%?
We have had 100%, and I expect we will continue to have 100%.
Can you explain how important this document really is? Because this and the budget tie together, right? Because we have to fund each one of these line items.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if the public would realize that this and the budget are two of the key documents that the school is run by, in a sense.
And so, and to add to your statement, which is correct, this is the program side. So we worked, hand in hand with fiscal just to make sure that there was that alignment. That there are the dollars, but then they're the programs that affect our students, right, and the learning that happens at our school sites.
And then can you comment on the dashboard? Because I think you draw more information from the dashboard than the state requires, right?
Right, so we draw from a number of different sources in terms of the data that we've used in our document. Some of that is internal information that we collect. Some of that is, yes, from the dashboard and other state data that we get. But really, one of the tricky pieces of writing a document like this is finding out where to get that data and making sure that it's reliable. So yes, we've drawn on the dashboard a lot, but we've also drawn on a number of other references in our work here.
And to piggyback off of that, we really wanted this to be a living document, and we wanted it to be transparent and reflective. Especially as we go forward, this is year 2, right? There's year 3 to come, and as adjustments are needed, the plan is to make the adjustments. But we wanted to, going back to your comments, draw from both qualitative and quantitative data.
Can you explain this one, the other document?
So the document that you're looking at, Mr. Nollenberg, is that's what the LCAP actually looks like. So we use a template that's provided by the Los Angeles County Office of Education to answer all the prompts and enter all the information. It's a very complicated document, as I'm sure you can appreciate. And so that's what it looks like. The goal of our presentation here is to take that and make it a little bit more accessible and bite-sized for all the folks in the audience and for ourselves, frankly. It makes it a little bit more manageable.
This is a public hearing, so this is open to, you had your hand up first, sir.
Okay. So in terms of the goal setting, can we go back to your first slide where you started with the goals? And I just want to follow up on one question about the 100% credentialing. So at the time that the goal was set, did we have 100%
Yes.
credentialing? So I guess that, so why would that be one of the goals? It should be maintained, or you have countries would that be?
So can we go back even to the overall, the basic services? You just passed it.
Did I pass it? Sorry.
So if you look at the goals in the document, keep going. There it is.
There you go.
So the state of California has identified priorities, and these are them, and we have to write goals to those priorities. And so, yes, I would never anticipate that we wouldn't have 100% of our teachers fully credentialed and placed appropriately. That's what Dr. Kuna is all about, right? Making sure that we get those good people and that they're in the right placements. But nevertheless, it's something that we want to acknowledge as a priority to make sure that folks know that we honor that and we strive to maintain that.
And then just another question, and then I'll let you go. So, I mean, you have a lot of different tools that we're trying to improve outcomes, right? And so, but your assessment seems to be relatively broad in terms of the scores. I understand some of that is really difficult to actually get at, but how do we know which tools, when you're trying multiple things, how do we know which is working, which is not? Because then that goes into matching your fiscal priorities with the goals and the tools that will help you reach your outcomes.
Sure. So there are two pieces to that question, and I'll speak to the first one. If you were to look at the LCAP document, which we will make public when it's been approved, you'll see numbers and percentages and the outcomes that we identified dialed down to very specific measurements that we're looking at. So they're more specific than what we showed you tonight. That's the first piece. But certainly, part of this process for us in our Educational Services Department is to be monitoring the programs that we're using, and so that we are better prepared to make the connections that you're describing. We know we've done A, B, and C, and we've seen this result. So what else can we do, or what modifications can we make to ensure that we do better, or that we see more growth, or what have you? And so that's part of what Dr. Chow was saying about this is a living document, and the great thing about it is that we can always add additional actions or services that we want to provide if we feel that there's something missing or there's a gap that remains there. And similarly, we could discontinue something if we felt like it wasn't having the desired impact.
And that's where the stakeholder engagement is key too, so that we can, just continue to check ourselves in terms of our progress and monitoring what the programs that are, being rolled out. Are they rolled out to fidelity? Are they reaching the groups that we want to reach? And getting the feedback from the various groups, so students, teachers, administrators, parents, so that piece of it.
Mr. Pomeroy.
Thank you. Dr. Chow, Mr. Stocks, you guys are sort of the relief pitchers, you might say. You've done a whole lot of work for this. Dr. Kistler, I know, did a lot before, so thank you for all your efforts. And as I understand it, my recollection is right, this is a public hearing. The plan will be approved at the next meeting, so whatever comments we all make, right, let's all make some comments so that we can add to the process. One comment I would have is, when we were talking about STEAM and computer science course offerings at Oak, I guess I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that, particularly at Oak. It might have been discussed in a meeting I didn't attend, but and it may well be in the big document you have, but maybe before you approve it, I'd like to hear more about that. And then finally, my other comment is that, the performance numbers for certain groups of students with disabilities and Hispanic students, that concerns me, and I know that we've moved from different tests and different forms of accountability and non-dashboard to the dashboard, and the color means both current score, also growth over time, which don't have a whole lot of years of growth. But, so I guess one question or one suggestion I have is maybe some context compared to years past with those two groups specifically, how we've been doing. And my last comment is that, as a board, I'm not sure that this board has really laser focused on achievement for certain subgroups, and that's because they haven't had to, because you guys have been taking care of it, and because Kathy Green was taking care of it, frankly, and Dr. Kistler and Dr. Francischini before her. But, as the district moves forward, in whatever way it moves forward, I really think this board needs to focus more specifically on some of those things and ask questions, because, making sure that every subgroup is properly serviced and is moving in the right direction is really the most important role that the board has. And maybe for a period of time, the district staff is taking care of it, and that's fine. But I do think that's an area where, the board needs to just make sure it happens one way or the other. And I think that's going to require a little bit more questions from the board and some more effort from the board in studying those issues, because they had, frankly, been taken care of pretty well without the board's direct involvement before.
Thank you for your comments. And I believe, so I'm going to address the question that you had regarding Oak, right? And the direction that we're moving. This is something that we want to be mindful in terms of articulation, because there is good work being done at the high school. There is good work that is being done at the elementary school. We want to provide for the students as they move into the intermediate school. Currently, our offerings in terms of electives for students is that there is a computer science course. We are looking at reevaluating and adjusting, because students will come up with some of the foundational content and knowledge and skill. And then also there is a STEAM elective that does incorporate elements of robotics and engineering and just the foundational pieces of architecture. We want to be mindful of looking at that and seeing how that will roll into CTE, right? And the pathway, should the student choose based on that exposure to follow that direction. So that's a work in progress, which we are looking forward to sharing with you very soon.
Can you go back to your screen on your analysis of the breakdown of who was surveyed between staff, students, the numbers, please?
Stakeholder.
The stakeholders.
Survey. Is this the same?
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, moving forward, because obviously we've already collected this data, if I'm looking at these numbers are extremely low for where you're getting your data from, which is concerning, because the board needs to figure out how to address these populations to get better data to answer what Mr. Nolenberg said. This is an extremely important document, and then it ties in with your funding. But if I'm looking at these numbers, if you only have 289 students and we're just below 6,000, that's concerning. If I'm looking at parents, 1,000 students approximately, let's just say, even if you had one parent households, you don't even have a percentage enough really to sample. 92 teachers out of 300, think we could improve that. Your staff members, your site administrators is extremely low, and your community, which is the fundamental, besides parents and staff, your community are your taxpayers, your constituents, as well as everybody else. That's extremely low. So I think moving forward, there has to be a better way to reach out to get the data that you need as a board to determine what programs you're going to keep or what programs you're not. But that data is one portion, that's an extremely small portion, those numbers. So there has to be a better way.
I agree with you, and this is definitely, there's room for growth, right? We did work very hard, and there was actually, what was it, a 500% increase from last year's data that was collected. Not to say there isn't room for growth. You know, there definitely is, but this is like 500% more than we did last year. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and our efforts will definitely continue. So thank you.
One suggestion that we made this year for Ed Services was the placement of the survey notices. I noticed the last couple of years that they were placed outside the office doors of some of the school sites. And, you know, the parents aren't exactly at those office doors, they're outside the gates. So I'm assuming that some of those survey notices were moved so that parents were waiting for their kids outside the gates would see the notices more than they had before.
The notices
There's
were...
other suggestions too that they are applying.
Yeah, absolutely. They were greater in number. We actually created a QR code that parents could scan with a direct link to the survey. Every time anyone visited the district or any site website between April 5th and May 28th, they were prompted to take the survey. And so I agree with Dr. Chow and the comments from the audience. We absolutely can do better. But this was a big step forward for us, and I'm hopeful that it's a first step of many.
Steps are always good. Yes, sir.
I think it was a hand up.
Building on her comment, being that the only 0.6% of the community members responded, we do have a lot of community events in the city, Camellia Festival, Lunar New Year Festival, the concerts in the park. If maybe you can get volunteers or staff or whatever to man a table and get this information out to the community, because you're hitting the schools, you know, parents who, I logged into the school's website and I got hit with, you know, I took it already, stop asking me. But majority, more so, community members. We are a city of 36,000, so you know, I mean, yeah.
Good suggestions. Thank you for your comment.
Yes, sir.
So, just to follow up, I mean, the concern, and I have the same concern about working with those subgroups that are in real need, right? So the focus seems to be a lot on technology, and some of the concern is bringing those people either to the technology or getting the technology to them. And so the focus is on, you know, trying to get people through websites and apps. That may not necessarily be the best way to get at those particular communities that are disadvantaged, that may not have access to some of those tools that we might be actually using. And so I would, you know, if you could probably share some background on some, because it's hard to read through all of that, because, you know, a fairly broad idea. But for example, in the Summer Bridge, how do you reach out to get students into the Summer Bridge program, and how big is the Summer Bridge program? Because that's where you'll really see the big benefit, is when you bring them here, apply and work with those students directly.
And the Summer Bridge program is going to be in its first iteration. It's our first attempt, where we actually have 3 teachers, certificated teachers, who are going to be supporting students. And we were very intentional about targeting students who are English learners, who are recent immigrants, who did demonstrate a need of the additional support. And we were mindful about providing those teachers with the training necessary as well. I mean, they already have the credential embedded, right? I mean, but just to give them the additional strategies and support. They were also participants in our GLAD training, and so that's ongoing into the summer. And so that'll happen 2 weeks before, but we were very intentional about keeping that number small. So it's three groups, one for elementary, one for middle, one for high school, no more than 25 students, so it's by invitation based on some of these criteria. And we wanted to start small and do it right for the opportunity to build in subsequent years.
And then for the 40% who are considered disadvantaged, what specific programs do you have?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
For those who are, I mean, we have, I think I saw the number was 40% who are considered disadvantaged. So
Right.
what specific programs do we have to target them?
So our socioeconomically disadvantaged group is 40.2%, and we actually receive special federal funding called Title I funding for those students, and that is being used in many different ways. Specifically, socioeconomically disadvantaged students are not necessarily in need in the same way that our English learners are, for example. Just because you're socioeconomically disadvantaged doesn't mean that you're going to struggle academically, for example, or that you're going to have trouble accessing the curriculum. And so that's why we use some of these bigger picture programs like the iReady that we mentioned, the Code to the Future, that we give to all students, knowing that those students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged are going to have access to those programs as well and are going to benefit from having access to those supports, if that makes sense.
Right, but do we have data to back that up, that those who are disadvantaged are not academically struggling in any way? Compared to the
I mean,
rest
we collect data on our student performance in all sorts of ways, and one of them is absolutely iReady. We can look at a particular group of students and we can know how those students are performing, if they're on grade level, specifically what kind of interventions they need, how they're predicted to perform on the end of year state tests, and we can make interventions based on that.
And then also, in order to get some of the qualitative feedback, some of the programs happen at a site because one site's needs might differ from another site's needs. And so we work with the school site councils at the individual sites to get that feedback and to get some information beyond the LCAP survey, for instance, so that we can address student needs.
Who's up? I think it's supposed to go do first, and then John.
So I noticed one of your objectives was the increase in AP participation at the high school. And one of my concerns regarding AP participation at the high school is we have set numbers of AP classes, which is why if you look at the document, it was like 64% in 2016 to 2017. And then this year, once again, was 64%, because you're generally catering to the same population that is taking AP classes. And another issue is that your AP teachers also teach regular classes. So their schedule is set for specifically maybe 2 AP classes. And along with that, unlike other schools, AP tests or AP classes at our school are not voluntary. You actually have to go through an entrance process. And I know that those entrance exams can possibly hinder students with interest in taking AP classes. So I know it's not to our jurisdiction to change the AP regulations for entrance testing for classes, but it was just something to bring up because there are exams to get into AP tests. So people with interests, for example, in computer science, there was a set number of classes this year, along with students not receiving that many high scores on the test, are saying, oh, don't take the exam, you won't do that well, don't take the class, you won't do that well. So there's also that kind of object of students saying, go take this because you won't know much about it, we don't have enough background on it, and that's kind of preventing the increase in AP participation, especially when other people say it's just going to ruin your GPA, it's going to ruin your record, don't do it. So there's also that possibility. I just wanted to bring that up.
I'd just like to say, Eileen, you're going to be an amazing addition. We absolutely share your concerns, and we've already begun conversations with the administration at the high school to make sure that those courses are being driven by student interest, that we are creating avenues for students to take AP courses rather than creating barriers for that. It's a slow conversation. There are traditions in place and there are practices that have been in place, and You know, obviously, we're not gonna turn things around overnight, but certainly we want to start looking at, you know, AP access at Temple City High School and doing what we can to help facilitate more students having access to those courses.
Sorry, I'd like to build off of that really fast. So, like, AP Calculus is one of the more popular AP classes at our school, and there is one teacher, and she has a full schedule, periods 1 through 7, where she teaches Calculus AB, and then she teaches Calculus BC. And because she has such a limited schedule and there's only one teacher, people that don't generally do that well in the entrance exam have no regular calculus class to go into, which has been a concern. Like, it happened to me because I didn't do that well in the entrance exam, and there was no math class, so I went a year without math, which is probably not going to be great for me. But is there any way to have kind of like a fallback class in case you don't make an AP class, but you're still interested in the subject? Like, I know for AP Computer Science, if you're not taking AP Computer Science, there's a regular class, but like classes like AP Calculus, if someone were not to get into the class, would there be like a regular calculus class to take?
Yeah, these are definitely really good comments and observations that we will bring back to the team at the high school. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these questions deal with the master schedule at the high school and what teachers are available and what the course requests look like and so forth. But I think in spirit, we absolutely agree with what you're talking about, and we need to find some practical solutions to make sure that we close that gap.
John?
Thank you. I was just going to say in response to my colleague up here in the front that I noticed in your summary, socioeconomically disadvantaged students increased 4.6 points on math, which I think is quite good, and that if that particular subgroup had gone down, or if there were concerns in other areas, I think that would have been noted elsewhere. So that's an area that historically, I think, as a district, we've done pretty well. And so socioeconomically disadvantaged students may overlap with English learners and obviously overlap with other groups. But obviously, you know, it's not anywhere where we'd like to see pulling back on the success that we've historically had. But I'm really glad to see that increased again. And finally, about the survey, you know, when I took the survey, it seemed longer and more detailed than before, and so I want to applaud all of you for having more details in there, and I think that it probably gave you more information, and I think the fact that it was longer, it seemed to take more time, means that the people that went through it, you know, invested even more of their time, and so I'm impressed with the numbers we got from the survey.
Thank you.
You reminded me of something I wanted to mention about the survey itself, which was that I started going through it, you know, and it took a really long time to get through everything. I had to like stop, you know, close the window for a while, come back. And I think if you guys separated it into smaller sections, so that maybe if people only wanted to make a note of one specific issue that they found, they could note that without having to go through the entire survey. Or just go back to different sections at a time, I think that would be helpful also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was the survey, I don't remember, is it available in other languages?
The survey was available in English, Spanish, and Chinese.
Any more questions? I will move that we close tonight's public hearing of the local control accountability plan. Second. Mr. Gould. All in favor? Aye. 4-0. I will move that we open a public hearing for the 2018 through 2021 district budget. Second by Mr. Gould. All in favor? 4-0.
Good evening. So tonight what we're going to be discussing is the budget for 1819, 1920, and 2021. So the budget is made up of a couple of areas. The first one is the sources of revenue. The local control funding formula is basically state revenue. It's about 85% of the total revenue for the district. We also receive federal revenue in Title I, II, and III, other state revenue and local revenue. We'll go into more detail in future slides about that. The uses are for certificated classified salaries and benefits, instructional materials, services, maintenance and operations of the district. Suman and Ethan just went through the LCAP. One of the things I want to point out as we compare the LCAP with the budget is the LCAP is a plan, but it is not the complete budget. So there are items that the district spends money on that aren't part of the LCAP. For instance, new district office staff, facilities and maintenance, things like that are not part of the LCAP, but they are part of the budget. One of the things we do in the LCAP is we tie dollars to each of the items that they just discussed with you, and then we have to reconcile to the dollar the total budget versus what's in the LCAP. I won't bore you with that tonight, but that's part of what we do. The budget considerations are always providing a balanced budget, giving priority to student needs and site needs, aligning with the LCAP, maintenance and facilities, making sure that we handle all statutory requirements. We have to restrict gap funding until that's released. We'll discuss that a little bit more, and compensation. So some of the guidelines we keep in consideration as we're working through developing the budget are making sure that we're supporting students, making sure that staffing ratios go along with board agreements with the different bargaining units, that we charge any direct charges where we can. We make a transfer from the general fund, transfers from the general fund require board approval, of course. And then the 1819 through 2021 part of the LCFF is a cost of living adjustment. One thing that's important to know is these percentages that are listed up here, we only get a cost of living adjustment on the grade span piece of the LCFF, so it's not the entire part. So say the LCFF is $32 million, we don't get a 2.71 increase on that, it's just a portion of that. So those are the cost of living adjustments for the next 3 years as of the governor's information to us in mid-May. LCFF was developed by Governor Brown and his team several years ago, and the whole point of it was to get school districts back to their funding like in 13-14. And his guarantee to us was that by 2021, every school would be funded back at those old levels because the recession, of course, reduced funding. So he's about 2 years ahead of schedule. We'll be fully funded for 18-19. Now there is a portion in 1920 and 2021, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's called gap funding. That part's not statutorily guaranteed. So it's part of our funding, but we can't budget until they release it. Usually they release it about nine months into the school year. For this year, 18-19 has already been released, so that's part of the budget. But when we look at 1920 and 2021, you'll see that those are kept out in a reserve because we're not allowed to budget for those quite yet. Step and column is included in all years, and our estimate for retiree health benefits is steady at $480,000 for each of those 3 years. Deferred maintenance, as of a couple of years ago, we're required to put 3% of the total expenses for the general fund, not all funds, but just the general fund, over to deferred maintenance. So those are our estimates of 3% of total expenses for the next 3 years. We don't give the deferred maintenance team all of their money right away because maybe our total expenses will be less. So we review it quarterly to see sort of where we are for actuals and then give them money as we go along. In August or late July, we'll be coming to show the board our deferred maintenance plan for next year and for the following 2 years. The reserves in our budget have the 3% requirement for the state and the additional 2% that our board requires. We have a commitment to reserve for the OPEB unfunded liability. The board has approved in the past $250,000 a year. You'll notice it says $500,000 in 18-19. We're not increasing the amount put aside, but the $250 from 17-18 has not been transferred yet. So it's a combination of those 2 years. It's not an increase to 500, it's just cumulative until we can actually make the cash transfer. STRS and PERS, you've all heard me say lots of times, it's getting very, very expensive, and it's going to continue for the next 3 or 4 years. From this year to next year, STRS is going 14.43 to 16.28. So that's an additional $529,000 year over year. That's not the total STRS expense for the district, that's just the increase from last year to next year. And the same with PERS. It's going from 15.531 to 18.062. So together, it's $750,000 more than the prior year. We have a 6.7% increase in utilities for about an additional cost of $100,000. That actually would have been more. Very good work was done by our technology team to reduce our phone and fax expenses. So it would have been about twice that otherwise. So this is a summary of the SACS report, and that's actually what the board is approving tonight. And the SACS report is, it's on our website. It's very large, and it's very cumbersome to read. People like me enjoy it, but most normal people do not. So this is a summary to just make it a little bit more palatable for everybody. So the top is the revenue. And what we're showing you is the 16-17 audited actual amounts. The next column is what I'm estimating right now, projecting what 17-18 will finish as. Then we have the budget for 18-19 and the projected budgets for 19-20 and 20-21. So LCFF is calculated, and again, that's the state funding, that's based on ADA. So that's not enrollment, but it's a percentage of students that actually come to class every day. We're very high at over 96%. Each grade level has a different funding formula or amount. So if you're a TK through 3 student, we get $8,180 per student. They get an extra $771 per student that's a TK through 3 because they're smaller class sizes, it's more expensive to teach them. If you're 4 through 6, it's $7,520 per student. 7-8 is $7,744, and 9 to 12 is $9,206. The 9 to 12 gets an additional $233 per student because high school, again, is a little bit more expensive to teach per student. So federal revenue is the next line, and we're projecting it to be reduced by about 8%. One very unfortunate thing for us is our budget is due now by the end of June. The state is not due until July, so we have to do our best with the information they provided to us. And then when you come to federal revenue, they don't tell us till like November. So they're in a completely different cycle. But everything we read and all the indications are about an 8% reduction in federal revenue. So I like to be conservative. I'd be so happy to come back to you in November and say, no, they gave us as much as last year, and then we'll be in great shape. But I try and be conservative, and we've been pretty close the last few years following that working model. So other state revenue, we received one-time funding from the governor, and he's been doing it a lot lately. There's some talk that one-time money, because it's been happening so often, will become a permanent piece of funding, but that hasn't been decided yet. But for 18-19, we're going to receive $344 per student, per ADA, and that's about $1.9 million. You'll see in one of my future slides that I've reserved 100% of that dollar amount, and that's because we haven't come to the board yet with a plan of how best to use that money. So I'm reserving all of it until we can have some study sessions in our cabinet team and come back with recommendations. The other pieces in other state revenue are unrestricted lottery and restricted lottery. Unrestricted lottery is $146 per ADA. That's about $831,000 for the district. And as it says unrestricted, it's very free to be used however sites and teachers think it should be used. It's very open. The other piece of lottery is restricted lottery, which is $48 per ADA. It's about $273,000, and that's very restricted what it can be used for. The other thing I like to always mention about lottery is people think, oh, the lottery's wonderful. It gives all this money to schools, right? I voted for it before I worked in schools. I thought it was wonderful. The problem is whatever amount you get from the lottery, they take out of LCFF. So as the lottery goes up, let's say you get an extra $250,000, they go to LCFF and they take that $250 right back out. So it's unfortunate, but that's how it works. Other local revenue is the last line there, and that's primarily allocations we get from our SELPA, which is our special ed consortium that we work with, and a small amount of interest we have for the funds that are invested at the county. So the next section, that middle section, is our expenditures. So the certificated salaries and classified salaries, as you go across left to right, the only increase you have in 18-19 and the 2 out years is step and column. Then when you get down to the benefit line, the biggest expense increase is the amount that's for that additional STRS and PERS. Our workers' comp are pretty flat. SUI, FUI, those are all really pretty flat, no big change, but that STRS and PERS is ramping. So that's where you see that significant gain there. Books and supplies, you're going to notice a decrease. About 73,000 is restricted books, or excuse me, restricted lottery, and we're reserving that for a future adoption of books, which we'll go through in our meeting July or August when we come back to the board. The other is in supplies is 570,000 that was spent this year was actually carryover of money that the staff didn't spend last year. So that carryover may or may not be there. We won't know that till we close the books out. They don't always spend all the money they get allocated, and some gets carried over to the next year for them to spend. And we'll bring more detail when we close the books out for you. Other operating expenses have decreased by $379, and that's a mix. We have an increase of our property and liability insurance by $48,000. Utilities, we talked about the budget going up $100. There's a reduction of $300,000. We did a lot of, Andy's team did a lot of infrastructure work this year for the technology that won't be happening next year. Let's see. And the other expenses there at the bottom are up a little bit. For additional tuition, we have some students that have elected to go to performing arts schools. So the money comes into us because they're technically our student, but then we move that out to go to the other folks. Anybody asleep yet, or are you still on? All right, still? Okay. So this is just a little bit of a graph to show it to you visually what our budget looks like. So 85% of our money, again, comes from LCFF, which is local control funding formula, which is basically state funding. 3% is coming from federal, 6% is other state, and 6% is other local. Just another way to look at it. This is to show you what our expenditures are going to. So 48% certificated salaries, 15% classified, benefits at 22%, books and supplies, service and other. So you can see that the majority of our expenditures are related to staff. And this shows you an overall comparison of historically of revenue versus expenses. So now I'd like to spend a little time going through the reserve so everyone can understand that. And basically a reserve is the difference between the money, whatever your account balance was at the end of last year, add in your new income, and take out your expenses. That's sort of what's like left over in your savings account basically. And this talks about the components of that. So we start at the top, it's revolving cash. We have a checkbook on hand that's used for an emergency. We seldom write checks out of it, but it's here, you never know if something could come up. The next one is stores inventory, and you'll notice we had about $17,000, and you'll see that it's zero going out. Our purchasing director has done a really, really good job of setting up purchasing for just in time, so we don't have a lot of stuff stored in the warehouse anymore. If someone orders by 3 o'clock any kind of office supply, any kind of cleaning supply, even a single broom, it'll be there the next morning. So that way we don't have money locked up in the warehouse that could get damaged, maybe becomes out of date, not used, expires, it's all next day delivery. So that's why you see that disappear. Then the designated reserve is the state requires us to put 3% of our total expenses aside in a reserve, and our board requires an additional 2%. So those are those two line items. The next one is restricted program reserve. So we have a lot of money that comes with strings attached, primarily special ed and federal money, and it can only be used for very specific purposes. So the amount that's left in that area has to be reserved for special, specific uses. Educator effectiveness is a grant that we received in 16-17, and it was a one-time grant, and it's going to be fully expended this year. That's why it zeroes across the way. And then you may remember us talking about the Career Technical Education Grant. There were two pieces. We received a grant, and then we had to do a match. First year 1-to-1, second year 1.5 to 1, third year 2 to 1, and then we had to agree to maintain those expenses going forward. So that's reserving that money because it can only be used for that Career Technical Education program. The next line is that gap funding that we were talking about. So you'll see in 18-19 at zero, nothing's reserved at all because the governor has released it. But in 19-20, you'll see $1,463,000. We can't budget that until it's released. And then in 2021, it's a combination of the 19-20 money and the 2021 money. So it's cumulative because again, that can't be budgeted until it's reserved, or excuse me, released. Targeted money is another component of the LCFF revenue, and it's considered unrestricted money, but has some restrictions with it. So we're holding out that money that has to be used for only specific things, and those are the targeted or unduplicated students that they were talking about in LCAP. In our restricted lottery, we're reserving some money for a future book adoption. Again, we'll review that more in August with you. Same with the one-time funding. The next to the bottom line is the OPEB unfunded liability, and again, that's cumulative because the money hasn't been transferred out of the general fund into the OPEB fund. So it's not 500 that year, that's 250 plus 250. And then the bottom is the unallocated reserve, so that's the amount that has not been earmarked for anything at this point.
Is the unallocated restricted in any way?
No, no. So this is just a bar graph to show you our historical ADA. Our top was definitely in 13-14, and we've had a bit of a decline in the last couple of years. We'll be bringing more back to you about that. There are a couple of bubbles that have gone through, and we're making conservative projections until we get our final numbers in for next year. Then these slides, I'll go through quickly. This is just showing enrollment by site from 10-11 through 17-18. So these are all of our elementaries. This is our middle school and high school, the Learning Center. And then this is historical enrollment by grade by year. And at the right-hand side is the total number of permits that we have in the students that are in the district. Sure. Do you want me to bring the PowerPoint back up?
Maybe.
Okay.
What line item would tell us any legal costs that the district has?
Okay, so I'm going to bring up another one of my little favorites here. So this is a report we call the data summary that our team does, again, to just look at the information a different way. When you look at the SACS report, which is the one that's turned into the state, everything's summarized by major object code. So for instance, certificated salaries start with a 1. So those are 1,000. Here, classified salaries start with a 2. Then you get on books and supplies, they start with a 4. So these are major object groups or general ledger codes. There isn't anything on here that would give you like a specific item that would be legal expense. This is a summary of a 6,500 line spreadsheet to make it where it's palatable. So there isn't something here. If the board wanted more detail, I could certainly bring that back at a different meeting.
I have a question.
Sure.
On because obviously this is the hearing for, it looks like staff, and through the years, staff salaries, personnel issues have gone up to 13.9%. Years ago, traditionally, it was around 11%. But your special ed is underfunded. So the board needs to decide how they're going to allocate their money, because historically, special education in the last 8 years, it's increased, and it's going to continue to increase with federal government giving less and less and less, but continuing the mandate. So the board needs to decide what direction they're going to go, because if you're looking at the current numbers of where you're underfunded, but yet your personnel costs are going up, and you have a small percentage going to your actual students, what are you going to do? You're meeting all of your minimum reserves, but you're going to have to reallocate funding to meet your special ed somewhere.
So can I just add a little bit?
Yes,
Everything
please.
you said is accurate. So I just want to add for anyone else who's not as familiar with special ed as some of us are. So the federal government makes a whole bunch of mandated requirements that you have no option, you have to follow them. But they only fund about 40% of it. So that difference, that 60% that we must do but we are not funded to do, we really don't have a choice. So you're bringing up a very good point, and we will need to do some study sessions about special ed.
This is why we have public hearings, so we get these questions out and everyone knows what's going on. Yes, John?
Yeah, just to clarify, so So this is a public hearing again for all of us to make comments or questions. I believe the budget would be approved at a future meeting, is that right?
I'll be back on the 27th. It's due to the county by the 30th.
Right, okay.
So they'll be reviewing and approving at the next meeting.
So there's not a lot of time, but again, our comments here, I know that the board will take seriously, and it will suggest to them things that they can ask for more information about. Special ed is a great one. I wanted to just suggest, based on the OPEB study that some of us heard the other day, that the board consider setting aside more money starting next year, more than the $250,000 that we've been setting aside. I wanted to just suggest that maybe some more information could be provided about the students who are receiving permits. What I see is that permits are used to kind of make sure that our enrollment stays approximately the same. And a school district, if enrollment goes down, even a small amount, that can really impact our funding from the state. So I certainly think keeping our enrollment steady is a good thing. However, when I look at the number of permits, it really doubled in the period of time shown here. So I think it would be helpful for the board to just get a little more information about that. And I think I had one other thing, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, and then finally the STRS and the PERS. And so you alluded to it, and I know in the overall number regarding benefits, it shows the increase, but the percentages of increase for each of those, I believe, are pretty well scheduled going forward, and it's possible that the legislature might change that, or whatever financial whizzes involved with those retirement plans might change it, but...
I sure hope so.
Right, then maybe we'll get some relief, but if not, maybe next time just a little more about the projected increases in the future, because we all need to understand that we look back 4 or 5 years, there was a financial crisis, and the last 4 or 5 years we've been sort of holding steady barely, and the financial crisis is really coming if we're not there again. So I hope the public is interested in that and wants to see that so many of these scheduled things will increase in ways that are not being offset by additional revenue. But I finally wanted to say, Ms. Sorrell, that the way you present information regarding the budget, it's been so open, and I think in the last few years we've all benefited from that, and our negotiations with our bargaining unions have been very easy, in large part because the information has been so open from the district. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So if I might answer you, because I just happen to have my STRS and PERS with me. So let's take STRS for an example. In 13-14, it was 8.25%. In 2021, it's projected to be 19.10. And that's actually slightly less than they had projected last year. Now, if we look at PERS, 2013-14 was at 11.44%. Everyone's sitting. 2021, 23.5.
How much of that increase, though, for instance, it's going to continue, and I have to agree with Mr. Pomeroy. When you're looking at CalSTRS and CalPERS, it is going to continue to increase, just like their health plans are. The question is, what is, and again, this comes back to the board, what's the plan with collective bargaining? Because I've been with the state a long time. There was a time I didn't pay any portion of my PERS. Now I pay a very large portion of my PERS. So as much as it will become a problem with staff in some ways, this has to start to be a collective bargaining issue as to what percentages they will be paying, because the district cannot sustain that full amount on top of providing services. So is there talk about how this will pertain out into collective bargaining?
So I hear your question. And I just need to add a little piece. So for our particular groups, the state sets what the employee does. Okay. So the employee piece has been increasing modestly.
Yes.
But we don't control that, so the state does. So the state says this is what the employee's gonna pay, and this is what the district's gonna pay. Okay. So there may be other things we need to discuss in collective bargaining to help offset that, but we can't really bargain that piece, but there could be other pieces considered.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just kind of a dumb question, but when you say 9% or 15% of what? Is it of their salary that we pay to the pension plan?
Yes. Yes. So again, 13-14, 18.25, excuse me, 8.25, 2021, 19.1. And PERS 11.4, growing to 23.5. So So those are really serious numbers, and that's why on this schedule, I always break out the increase over the prior year, because if you don't keep looking at it, I think it just blends together, and we just don't see the impact, and it's huge. And another point I'd like to make is, we think, oh great, there's COLA, and COLA's growing. The COLA doesn't cover that increase. So unfortunately, it's not one where they give us something and take away the even amount. They give us something, but it's not enough to cover the growth they have for us, which is challenging.
I didn't quite understand it on the retirement health benefits. It stays the same and stuff, but why isn't that, shouldn't that be increasing or something to it?
So what we do is we have a model that takes who are the retirees right now. And based on the retirees we have right now, that haven't fallen off, that are still there, that's our projection for the next couple of years. That's gonna change because next year some people might retire, that adds more people, some people might age out and it will reduce. So we take a look at that about every 6 months to make sure that we're on target.
Okay, so it will decrease then?
It could increase, it could decrease, it depends how many people retire and how many people, fall off the model. And if you ever want to see the model, I'd be happy to share it, but you probably don't want to.
I need to clarify, they don't get health for life. They are only getting benefits for a certain time before
To age
they're-
65.
Yeah, before they go to Medicare.
Right.
And
you
you
have to
don't
be
get the
here-
full amount, it's just a monetary
portion.
amount.
Yes,
and
and then
they're
it's a-
paying the rest of it from their retirement.
Right, and then it's also dependent how many years you've been here, what age you are when you retire. There's quite a few pieces to that. And then the OPEB, which is also, sorry, John, is also a really important topic for all of us to understand better. We're going to have a study session likely in September, if that's okay with the board, to just have Jeff Tcusd come again, the actuary, and just go through it at a much slower pace so people can ask questions and understand it, because our unfunded liability for OPEB is also just daunting. It's like $21 million, and that's something we also have to be making plans for. I just want everyone to understand it a little bit better. Yes, ma'am?
Those study sessions will be open to the public.
Absolutely. I don't have a set date yet, or I would tell you. I'm waiting for Jeff to see when he can get us on his calendar. He's pretty busy. Oops, sorry.
It's okay. So I'm a little green when it comes to these financial numbers and the categories, but I do have a question regarding the permits, permitted students. So do you guys take, let's see, how do I say this?
However you want is just fine.
Well, because for special ed students, if you accept someone from another district who has an IEP, don't you have to pay that other school?
No. So what happens is the funding follows the student.
Or the school has to pay you guys?
No.
Oh.
So we tell the state, Mary Ann is a new special ed student that's come in from Rosemead. And so the state pays for me here, because it's your, the district where you go to school. So what you may be thinking about is the SELPA. So we're in a SELPA with like 8 other districts. And so we'll do like the visually impaired program, someone else has the autistic program, right?
Yeah.
And we all kind of share our students. That's where we pay each other. So at the end of the year, it's like, we pay for this many for Arcadia, and they're gonna charge us this, and we have like a net invoice, either we owe them or they owe us. So it might be that you're thinking about. That's slightly different.
Actually, I know about that.
Okay, sorry.
But, no, I just, maybe it was years ago that happened, I don't know, but I remember wasn't Temple City, but another school wouldn't allow the student to stay in Arcadia because they said they would have to pay. I guess maybe it was because they would get their funding or something, I don't know. Maybe the ADA.
So I don't want to talk about other districts ever in a bad light.
Yeah.
But when a student comes to you and they qualify in a permit to come, it doesn't matter if they're a special ed student, an EL student, then we take them.
Okay, and then now on another topic, I have a question. So what is the other, it says local revenue, where does that, how do you get that?
So other local is really small, and it's primarily, we have some cell tower leases.
Some what?
Cell tower leases at some of the sites. We have a little bit of interest. We also rent out our facilities. People rent classrooms, they rent parking lots. We rented the parking lot last weekend. It wasn't a lot, but we got something. So it's that kind of thing. It's real small.
Okay, and then how is that out? Just puts in the general fund or? Okay. And just to clarify, I wasn't putting any other districts down.
I know you weren't. I just wanted to pick my words carefully when I was responding. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all very much.
So I will move that we close the public hearing for the 2018 through 2021 district budget. Second by Mr. Nolenberg. All in favor? Aye. I will move that we approve amendment number 10 to the master agreement with Tcusd Construction Management for construction management services for Cloverly Elementary Modernization Phase 2 and the La Rosa Modernization Phase 2 projects. Second by Mrs. Huff. Please go ahead.
I was just wanted to be here in case you guys had any questions.
Okay. So back in March 13 of 2013, the board at that time approved a master agreement with Tcusd to complete program management and construction management services. The agreement specified that all project agreements would be handled through a work authorization or amendments. So tonight, there is a 10th amendment to that agreement pertaining to the services for Cloverly Elementary, the Phase 2, and the Phase 2 for La Rosa modernization. Are any questions on the scope of the amendment? Okay. Reading the reports, I think you all read the report when we got your packet. It's all pretty self-explanatory. So if there's no other questions, all in favor for approval of amendment number 10?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move that we approve adoption of the Los Angeles County Plan for Expelled Pupils as required by Assembly Bill 922 and Education Code 48926. Second by Mr. Nolenberg.
Okay, and I'll just give you a little bit of additional information on that. So every 3 years, each county superintendent of schools works in conjunction with the superintendents of schools from the districts in the county and are required to develop a plan for providing educational services to all expelled pupils in the county. The original plan was originally published in 2015, so it has been updated. It's a triennial update. It has been updated and it was adopted by the Los Angeles County Board of Education at its April 10th, 2018 regular meeting. The plan includes responses from a countywide survey that went out to all of the districts in the county regarding the educational services that are provided for expelled students. The plan is also required to include existing educational alternatives, any gaps in the educational services that are identified, the plans for filling the gaps, and then alternative placements for pupils who fail to meet terms and conditions of their alternative placement. So you have a copy of the plan with all of those details, and it is recommended that our board accept and acknowledge this as a basic plan to address the needs of all of expelled students in LA County.
So does this plan supersede what policies we already have in place for a particular subject?
It actually aligns, so we provided in response to the survey what we had in place, as well as all of the districts in the county regarding how they service expelled pupils. So this plan, it actually details some of those same things that we currently have in our policies. So regarding suspended enforcement of expulsion, or expulsion with referral to a district community. We don't have a district community school program, so that one would not apply to us. Other districts do. And then expulsion with referral to a county community school. So it's in alignment with our policies as well.
You've all had a chance to read through this. Do you have any questions for tonight?
The other 88 cities have all approved it, or the other?
Yes, and if you see in the beginning of the plan, it does list all of the other school districts in LA County that are included in this plan.
And they have approved this, or is there consensus that they will approve this and go with it?
Correct. So the LA County Board approved it in April, and then all of us are asked to bring it to our boards for approval before the end of June.
And on here, under the recommendations, you list tri-annual updates. Is this going to be updated 3 times a year?
Yeah, so LA County is asked, the county superintendent, they need to update this plan triennially. So the last time this was published was 2015, and then this is their update.
Okay.
Yes.
So every 3rd year, we will get the updates.
Correct.
Will we have to reapprove?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so it's moved and seconded to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. Okay. Ms. Lasotti, you had comments for item 17?
Excuse me. So I would like to draw to the board's attention some issues with the contract. First and foremost, looking at this, I'm a little bit concerned because your legal counsel is tied to the consulting firm, and I would highly encourage the board to begin to take more of an impartial approach, and you have other law firms that you work with. I would have another law firm look at this contract before you vote to approve it. Because to me, this isn't transparent and it's a conflict of interest. And I'm sure to some of the community members out here, they feel the same way. I am not insinuating that this is a badly drawn contract. What I'm insinuating is it doesn't look right on appearance. It is showing your legal counsel is tied to the consulting firm and everybody's hands are in the same pot. So I would highly encourage you to have another outside counsel, since you have several at your disposal, look at the contract, get their opinion, and look at possibly some of the revisions that I'm going to point out that I see are flaws. First of all, as previously mentioned by other community members, there's no cap limit. What kind of contract are you entering into when there's no cap? Being a prior board member, I find it hard to believe that going into your busiest time of the year, your so-called interim superintendents are going to work less than a full-time superintendent. So I think you need to have a cap limit. I also think you need to do a 6-month contract instead of a year contract. A lot can happen in 6 months, and why would you tie your hands into a year-long contract? If I could draw your attention to page 2. Page 2, item 4C, it talks about the contractor shall be responsible for all travel expenses associated with the performance of this agreement, except additional travel specifically requested and approved by the client's chief business official. Now, I have no issue with Ms. Sorrell. I think she's right on the target with her numbers. My concern is that it is not normal for a superintendent to report to the CBO. They report to the board. So I think some of your language there needs to be corrected and changed. If you go down to number 5, where it talks about termination and it talks again about travel expenses, if you're entering into a contract for services, I personally feel that the rate of $250 an hour, they need to cover their own travel expenses, even if it's for the district. That should be part of the contract. That's just my opinion as a constituent. I think we're already getting gouged enough. So, going on into page 4, number 10. This is a huge problem with me. Most contracts right now are making references to settling any dispute that would require legal action by arbitration, not talking about who's responsible for fees. I think you need to renegotiate that to protect the district. This isn't about your personal agendas, this is about the longevity of the district, and if you were to consult with Warren at a different level or outside counsel, arbitration is common now in most contracts, especially when dealing with employment services. If you go down to number B on page 4, you can see why I have concerns. The law firm and the consultants tied together. It just doesn't look right. And I understand that this board has had a few problems lately with the community. That doesn't help build trust with the community. It builds a misrepresentation of how things are being looked at. You need some outside eyes, outside of the community, outside of your current legal counsel to take a look at it. If you go to page 5, the second paragraph that talks about Capital Advisors Group consultant, who is also not a law firm consultant, shall notify the district's chief BSO. I have a problem with that again. Your hands are tied. You are dealing with a consulting group that was brought to you by your law firm. Now, I know in the past, you should be able to have an open forum and have picked several different consultants. I'm almost done, Emerald, I know I'm over time. But as long as you're looking at this contract, go to Exhibit 1, or Exhibit A, number 1. You're going to waive the credential requirement. I'm a little concerned again, because these are supposed to be seasoned administrators that are coming in, as Mr. Pomeroy said earlier. Okay, if we're gonna move forward, you want someone with experience. I'm concerned that this individual is doing consulting and doesn't have a current administrative credential, and you're gonna waive that requirement? That's not sitting right with me. So I really think before you approve this contract, you need to have some other eyes look at this, and you need to have a fresh legal counsel not tied to these people looking at this contract. Thank you.
Mr. Palmer.
Thank you. I think I've said 35 seconds. I just wanted to point out, and looking through the contract, I'll try not to be duplicative, but I noticed in the description of duties, number 5 is to basically be a professional search firm for the district in looking for a new superintendent, and that any compensation for that would be at the hourly rate. And that strikes me as unusual, and in the past, although we didn't engage a search firm when I was on the board, but we interviewed them, and it was always a flat fee type of arrangement where they would present what they would do, and it wasn't an hourly arrangement. So it seems to me that this is an area where possibly the hours really could explode, and the controls could go out of control. I note in the closed session that there's a item for negotiation with an interim superintendent, and so I suggest that perhaps the figure of $250 an hour could be negotiated. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll move that we reorganize the agenda and consider item 17 after closed session when we have a chance to meet with legal counsel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gould. All in favor? 4-0. Okay, I'll move that we adopt resolution 1718-18, ordering governing board member elections to be held on November 6th.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nolenberg. This is the beginning process to tell the county that we acknowledge that there is election on November 6th, and that they can provide us with the paperwork and everything that we have that happen. This will be a roll call vote.
Member Gould?
Yes.
Member Huff?
Yes.
Member Nolenberg?
Yes.
And Member Marston?
Yes. Okay, so I will move that we receive California School Board Association's required policy changes regarding Assembly Bill 69-9, educational equity for first reading. Second by Mr. Nolan. Okay, so then we are receiving this. The state passed Assembly Bill 699, and that changes requirements for the education quality for immigration students. And CSBA has rewritten and modified several policies to align with that Assembly Bill. And so between now and the next meeting, we read through it, and we will discuss it and make sure that we're okay with all the changes. So tonight, we're just approving that we're receiving this. So all in favor? Aye. 4-0. And Ms. Losada, did you have comments on number?
Yes, can I just, I'm gonna, I think I'm loud enough to talk from my seat. Yes, I do have several comments. One of which is your minutes from the joint special ASB board meeting. There is no cure and correct for that Brown Act violation of not having that agenda posted. So I do think that you need to have some type of notation that there was something in error, that it was not posted. I think you need to take responsibility, one way or another. The other questions I had, and I'm sorry, Marianne, to kind of put you on the spot, but I was looking at some of the checks, account temps for number 2 for 15,000, number 132 for 64,000, as to what and who that is. Then there's also a check number 49 for First Capital for 62,000. Who is First Capital? And then 52 and 53 says miscellaneous, and it came out to a total of 29,200. And then Deborah Amos is 136 for 120,000. So it's just, it doesn't, it's just to understanding. I mean, that's a lot of money.
It is, so I'm gonna ask you to go back, because you were going too fast for me to catch up.
Oh, I'm so
with you.
sorry.
No, no worries. So, give me the number again, please.
Okay, here, I'll go in order to make it
Okay.
easy. So number 2, account temps.
So we have 2 places where account temps is helping us. One is in the fiscal services department, because we were short a person for about 6 months. We're almost cleaned up on that.
Okay.
And the other one is in our food services department. Our accountant is being acting director, and so it's a temporary person because we can't fill that position until we fill the director position. And we're just now able to start that process.
Okay, so we're paying account temps basically for temporary help working?
Yes.
Okay. And then on number 49, First Capital for 62,000.
See if I brought that with me. You know what, I didn't bring that with me, but I'll look it up and I
Okay.
can.
Because that's a lot of
Right.
money at 62,000. I mean, that's like 3 classified employee salaries. So I'm just trying to figure out who that is. 52 and 53, it has it listed as miscellaneous, and so when you total the numbers, it's 29,200.
Um, 52 and 53 are Glasby Maintenance.
Okay.
And Glasby Maintenance is the vendor that provides all of our janitorial supplies to the sites. So, you know, brushes, brooms, toilet cleaner, floor cleaner, that kind of thing.
So how come it says miscellaneous on some of the other ones? It will list, it says janitorial or custodial.
Bad description.
Okay.
We can clean that up.
Please do, because that seems misleading. And then my last one was 136 to Deborah Amos for 120,000.
So I actually had that one highlighted because I thought that's gonna pop up for somebody. That 120 is a typo, that's her year contract. She's a consultant we have in food services, but that amount is wrong on this schedule.
Okay, so what is the correct amount?
I will look that up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think the board would need to note the corrections to the consent agenda of what the CBO needs to look up before you, in your approval process.
Okay, so we will pull item 25 from the consent agenda. consent item agendas 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28. 27, actually, 28 is the approval. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Nolan. Any other questions concerning those items?
Do we want to make a correction on the,
I pulled item 25, so it can be corrected. Yes. Yes.
no, I mean, as far as the ASB, wasn't there, did you point out something, discrepancy on something, where wording?
I don't believe there's a discrepancy on the meeting minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was just on the,
Yeah.
and it wasn't posted.
So as we moved and seconded, are there any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. And would you be more comfortable approving the item 25 at the next meeting? Yes. So Mary Ann will bring this item, this week's payroll documents and warrants document at the next meeting with correction.
Sure thing.
Are there any board comments?
Just one.
Yes.
I'd like to see us maybe have a discussion at some later date about the Brown Act and have it geared towards, say, the public more than for the board members. Have it so that the board members understand the Brown Act, but also so the public can understand.
Did we skip number 20 on the agenda?
So did I list 21 through items 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28? Is that what I listed?
That's what you said.
Okay, my apologies. I'd like to amend my motion of the approval of 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, and to include 20.
I'll second.
So the amendment is seconded by Mr. Gould. All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Lee. That's 4-0. Okay, is that it for the board member, board comments?
I had a comment, though. I'd like to see request that you look at our disaster drill or our disaster protocol. Since 2012, since Sandy Hook, there have been 438 people shot and 130 killed on school sites. And I think we need to revise or at least look at our listings as shooter on site. And there have been a lot of updates and stuff on it that we're not following. We have done some, but we're not, I don't think doing enough. And I think that on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay.
And one other one, and that is, what the business office is looking at, a special meeting on OPED, I guess, isn't it? Whenever he's available.
Right, I'm waiting to hear back from Jeff, I'm hoping for September, but I
Okay.
don't have a date for you yet.
All right, so I will move that we adjourn closed session.
Before we do that, can I just make, I wanted to express thanks to Jolene Wiest, because Jolene's the one that put this book all together, and really it entailed a tremendous amount of work. And she just had to sit in the audience and listen to all of her work being explained on the microphone. So appreciate your work. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
That's good.
Okay, so it's a motion to adjourn the closed session.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gould. All in favor? Aye.
Oh my God. I'm still sitting in this chair. I'm afraid to stand up. My knee hurts, my butt hurts, everything hurts.
Is your baby okay?
Huh?
Is your baby okay?
My baby's doing better than I am. My baby's keeping me warm.
Okay, I'll move that we reconvene to open session. Second by Mr. Olber.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. 4-0. Okay, tonight in closed session, the board took the following action. Motion of Member Marston, second by Member Gould, and a unanimous vote. The board approved an agreement to resolve disciplinary actions recommendation for student number 104-000-5260. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agreement with Capital Advisors Group for interim superintendent services?
I so move.
Second.
So moved by Member Huff, second by Member Gould. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Did you have a statement?
Yes, I would. I'd like to suggest that at our next board meeting, that we return with a timeline with some degree of detail that describes the timeline and the process for the selection of the new superintendent for the district. So that's something that you can expect at the next board meeting.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. I'll move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gould. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0.